I go running at night because it fits my schedule. I work late, I get home, and I go out. That's it. No deeper reason. The road I use is always the same. It's a straight stretch of asphalt with trees on both sides. There are no houses once you get far enough in. My name is Kyle. I'm not in great shape, but I try to keep a routine. That night I did exactly what I always do. I put on my running shoes, stepped outside, and started jogging at a steady pace. The first part of the run is always normal. You still hear distant traffic, maybe a dog barking. After a few minutes, all that disappears. It's just the road and the trees. I don't use music. I prefer to hear what's around me. I was about halfway into my usual route when I heard something from the right side of the road. It wasn't loud, but it didn't match anything normal either. It sounded like something dragging across dry leaves. I slowed down and turned my head slightly, trying to locate where the sound came from. It happened again, a bit clearer this time. It wasn't fast movement, it was uneven, like something injured trying to move. I stepped off the road and looked between the trees. It took a few seconds for my eyes to adjust, but then I saw it. A deer lying on its side. One of its legs looked bent in a bad way, and its chest was moving fast. I didn't get too close at first, I just stood there watching it. The deer didn't try to run, which already felt off. Even injured animals usually react to people. Before I moved any closer, I stayed still for a moment, listening. The road behind me felt farther away than it should have. The trees around me looked thicker than they did when I first stepped off the pavement. I took a few steps toward it anyway. I kept moving forward slowly, watching the deer the whole time. It didn't move at all. It just stayed there, looking in my direction. Its breathing sounded heavy, like it was struggling. Before I got within a few meters, I stopped again. There was a pause where nothing happened. No wind, no insects, no other sounds. Just that animal in front of me and my own breathing. I took another step. The deer wasn't in the same position anymore. It was now behind a tree, partly hidden. I hadn't seen it move. There was no sound of it getting up or shifting its weight. It was just there now. I leaned slightly to the side to get a better look. What I saw didn't match what I had seen before. The body shape was wrong. The head was too narrow, and it was positioned higher than it should have been. It was standing. Before anything else happened, there was a moment where I didn't move and neither did it. I was trying to understand what I was looking at, and it stayed still like it was waiting for me to figure it out. It held onto the tree with one arm. The arm was long and thin, with joints that didn't look right. The skin was pale and flat in color. I couldn't see proper facial features, just a smooth surface with shallow areas where eyes might be. I stepped back without taking my eyes off it. It leaned out a bit more from the tree, showing more of its body. It didn't make any sound. It didn't rush me. It just stayed there, watching. I turned around and ran. I didn't stay on the road. I went straight into the trees without thinking. Branches hit my arms and face, but I kept moving forward. I didn't slow down to check anything behind me. The ground was uneven and full of roots. I tripped once and hit the ground hard, but I got up immediately. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see if it was following me. Before I heard anything behind me, there was a stretch where the only sound was my own movement. No footsteps chasing me, no branches breaking. That made it worse because I didn't know where it was. Then I heard it. It wasn't running. It sounded like something walking at a steady pace through the trees. The direction wasn't clear, but it was close enough that I knew it was following me. Before the next moment, I slowed down without meaning to. I was trying to listen and figure out where it was coming from. My breathing was loud and uneven. The sound came from in front of me. I stopped and took a step back. That didn't make sense because I had been moving in one direction the whole time. It stepped out from behind a tree ahead of me. Same body, same posture. It tilted its head slightly, like it was observing me. I turned and ran in a different direction. I kept running, but my pace was dropping. My legs were getting heavy and my breathing was getting worse. I couldn't keep moving like that for long. Before anything else happened, everything went quiet again. No movement, no sound. It felt controlled, like the silence wasn't natural. I slowed down and crouched behind a tree. trying to stay still. I covered my mouth with my hand so I wouldn't make noise while breathing. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then I heard something move directly behind me. I turned quickly and saw it close to me. It reached toward me with one arm. The fingers were long and thin. I got back up and ran again. Before the next moment, there was a short stretch where I thought I'd gained some distance. I didn't hear anything behind me. Then something grabbed the back of my shirt and pulled hard. The fabric stretched and then tore. I fell onto my back and hit my head against the ground. I kicked again and managed to get free. I stood up and ran without stopping. My breathing was unstable and I could feel my body starting to give out. I kept moving forward without knowing where I was going. I just needed to get away from that thing. My legs were barely keeping up. Before the last moment, everything went quiet again. No sound behind me. No movement in front of me. Then, I noticed the ground changing. There were fewer roots and the surface felt more even. I pushed forward. I saw the road ahead. I ran straight toward it and stepped onto the pavement. My footing changed suddenly, and I almost slipped, but I kept moving. Behind me, I heard movement again, closer than before. I didn't turn around. A car was coming down the road. The headlights were bright enough to see clearly. I waved my arms and ran toward it. The driver stopped suddenly. I opened the door and got inside without asking. The driver kept asking what happened, but I didn't answer. I just told him to keep driving. He looked confused, but he didn't argue. I didn't look behind us. I stayed facing forward the whole time. After a few minutes, we reached an area with lights and buildings. Everything looked normal again. He dropped me off at a gas station. I sat down on the curb and tried to catch my breath. My shirt was torn, and my arms had cuts from the branches. My knee was bleeding from the fall. I never went back to that road. I stopped running at night after that.
I worked the night shift at a 24-hour McDonald's near a highway exit. The place never fully stopped, but it slowed down enough to make the hours feel longer. My job was simple: take orders, clean trays, restock supplies, and wait for the next customer. At night, we were always a small team. One person at the front, one in the kitchen, sometimes a supervisor in the back. There was always a security guard near the entrance, mostly standing still, watching people come and go. There was a guy who started showing up almost every night. He looked homeless, dirty clothes, thin body, skin pale in a way that didn't look natural. He never ordered anything, he just walked in and stood there without doing anything. Security always removed him. No resistance, no reaction. He would just turn and walk out. The strange part was that he didn't look annoyed or embarrassed. It always felt like he had already decided when he was going to leave. After a few nights, everyone started talking about him. Customers noticed him, some avoided him, others asked questions. Management told us not to get involved and to let security handle it, but that didn't stop the tension from building up. He didn't show up at the same time every night. Sometimes it was early, sometimes close to dawn. There was no pattern. He just appeared, stood there for a while, and then left when security approached him. People called the police a few times. Every time, he was gone before they arrived. No one saw him leave. He just wasn't there anymore, as if he disappeared inside the building. One night, I watched closely when they kicked him out. He walked outside slowly without looking back. A car passed in front of the building for a second, blocking my view. When it cleared, he was gone, and there was nowhere he could have gone to that fast. That night felt slower than usual. There were fewer customers, and the silence between orders made everything feel stretched out. I kept checking the entrance more than I probably should have, expecting him to show up again. Before locking the front door, I made sure it was secure. I pushed it twice, checked the handle, and confirmed it was locked properly. I didn't want any chance of him getting inside again without us noticing. Around 3:40 a.m., I was alone at the counter. The kitchen guy was in the back and the security guard had stepped outside. That's when I heard the door open, even though I knew I had locked it. I looked immediately. The door was slightly open, moving just a little, but there was no one standing there. I didn't try to investigate further, and I grabbed the phone to call the police, telling them someone had entered the building while I kept my eyes fixed on the entrance. After the call, I moved away from the front. If someone had broken in, they would go for the registers, and I didn't want to be anywhere near that. I headed straight to the storage room, trying to put distance between me and the entrance. Before entering the storage room, I stopped at the door and listened carefully. I wanted to be sure no one was already inside, because walking into something without knowing felt worse than staying outside. Everything was quiet. No footsteps, no movement. Nothing that suggested someone was there. I opened the door slowly, stepped inside, and closed it behind me before locking it. The room was small and packed with supplies. Boxes stacked high, freezer units humming softly, and barely enough space to move comfortably. I stood still for a moment, focusing on the silence and trying to calm down. Then I heard it. A wet chewing sound, slow and repetitive, coming from somewhere inside the room. It was too close to ignore and too clear to mistake for anything else. I turned my head toward the freezer section and saw someone crouched there. The packaging of the raw patties was torn open, and he was grabbing the meat with both hands and eating it without stopping. I didn't react immediately. I just stared, trying to understand what I was looking at. His body didn't look right, like the proportions didn't match a normal person, and his skin looked pale in a way that felt wrong. Then I recognized his face. It was the same guy who kept coming in every night, but up close, it was different. His features didn't sit correctly, and his mouth opened wider than it should have while he chewed. Before doing anything else, I looked at his eyes and realized there were none. The space where they should have been was empty, and that made it impossible to tell where he was looking, even though I knew he was aware of me. I took a slow step back toward the door, trying not to make any noise. The moment my foot moved, he stopped chewing and turned his head directly toward me with a speed that didn't match a normal human reaction. I tried to move faster and reach the door, but I didn't get the chance. He was already in front of me, blocking the exit completely, without making a sound or giving me time to react. I stopped moving without meaning to. My body was locked in place while he leaned closer to my face, his jaw moving slightly with pieces of raw meat still visible between his teeth. He didn't touch me, and after a few seconds, I understood that as long as I stayed completely still, he wouldn't attack. I tried to move slowly, just enough to create space, but he followed every movement with perfect precision, staying directly in front of me and never losing track of where I was. Before anything else could happen, the door handle moved and a voice came from outside. The security guard called out and pushed the door open, stepping inside without knowing what was waiting for him. There was a brief moment where nothing happened, just enough time for him to look around and notice me standing there. Then, the creature reacted immediately, turning away from me and moving directly toward him in a fast motion. It grabbed him with both hands, one in his head and the other on his upper body, stopping him before he could even react properly. The guard tried to pull away, but his movement ended almost instantly, as if his body had shut down without a fight. I didn't stay there to watch what happened next. The moment the creature focused on him, I forced myself to move, pushed past the side, and got through the door without looking back. I ran through the kitchen and out the back exit, not stopping or slowing down, putting as much distance as possible between me and that room while the sounds behind me faded completely. I never went back to that place after that. I didn't call my manager, I didn't try to explain anything, and I didn't return for my things. I just stayed away and avoided anything related to that job. No one contacted me afterward. The police never called and the company never reached out. It was like the entire situation had been erased or never reported in the first place. A few days later, I checked online to see if anything had come up. The McDonald's was still open, operating like nothing had happened, and there were no reports about any incident or missing staff. I guessed that reporting a murder and a monster appearance wasn't good for business.
My name is Megan. I live in a small house at the edge of a quiet neighborhood with my son, Tyler. He's 12. It's just the two of us and our dog, Buddy. Nothing special about the place. One floor, narrow hallway, thin walls. You hear everything that happens inside it. Buddy came to us about a year ago. Medium-sized, brown fur, nothing remarkable. Calm most of the time. He followed Tyler everywhere at first, slept near his bed, waited outside the bathroom, sat next to him when he played games. I liked that. It made the house feel less empty. Things started shifting slowly. Tyler stopped letting Buddy into his room at night. Then he stopped petting him. Then he started avoiding him completely. I noticed, but I thought it was just a phase. Kids get weird sometimes. One evening, he told me straight up he didn't like the dog anymore. Not in a dramatic way. He said it quietly while eating. He didn't even look at me. I asked why. He shrugged and kept eating. I didn't push it too much. I told him to stop acting like a baby. Buddy hadn't done anything wrong. At least, not that I'd seen. Tyler started locking his door at night. That was new. He never did that before. When I asked, he said it helped him sleep better. I told him it was unnecessary. He insisted. A couple days later, he told me something that I didn't take seriously. He said Buddy was acting strange. Not barking, not growling. Just watching. Sitting still for long periods, looking at him without moving. I told him that dogs do that sometimes. He shook his head and said no. He said it wasn't normal. He said Buddy didn't blink much anymore. That part annoyed me more than anything. It sounded like something he made up after watching videos online. That night, I checked on Buddy myself. He was lying in the living room, calm, breathing slow. When I called his name, he stood up and came over like always. Nothing strange. I told Tyler he was overreacting. He didn't argue. He just nodded and went back to his room. That was the last time he tried to explain it to me. The day everything went wrong, I'd gone out to buy groceries. Nothing unusual. It was early evening when I got back. The street was quiet. No cars passing, no people outside. Just still. Before I even opened the door, I noticed something off. The house was silent. No TV, no footsteps, no dogs scratching at the door like usual. I stood there for a second, holding the bags, listening. I went inside and closed the door behind me. The groceries felt heavier than usual in my hands. I set them on the kitchen counter and called Tyler's name. No answer. Then I heard it. Crying. Soft at first, then louder. It came from down the hallway. I walked fast toward the sound. My chest tightened, but I didn't stop. When I reached the hallway, I saw Tyler sitting on the floor near the bathroom door. His face was wet, his hands shaking. He pointed at the bathroom. He didn't speak right away, just pointed, like he couldn't bring himself to say it. I crouched down and grabbed his shoulders, asking what happened. He looked straight at me and said there was something inside. He said it wasn't the dog anymore. Before I could react, I heard a sound from inside the bathroom. A slow movement. Something brushing against the floor. I stood up and moved toward the bathroom door. My hand hesitated before touching the handle. The crying behind me didn't stop. Tyler kept repeating that something was inside. I opened the door slowly. Inside, I saw Tyler. He was locked in the bathroom, pressed against the wall, eyes wide. Breathing fast. He looked exactly like my son. Same clothes, same face, same everything. For a second, my brain refused to process it. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my ankle. I looked down and saw something clamped onto my leg. Teeth dug deep into my skin. The pressure was strong, sudden, and violent. I lost balance and dropped to the floor. The thing that bit me looked like Tyler. It had his face, but it was wrong. The skin stretched tight in some areas and loose in others. Its mouth was open wider than it should be. Teeth pressed hard into my ankle as it pulled back and shook its head. The pain shot up my leg. I tried to kick it, but it held on. Then it climbed onto me. Before it reached my face, there was a moment where everything slowed. I could hear Tyler behind me shouting. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The thing's hands were already on my chest, pushing down. It leaned closer. Its face was still shaped like my son's, but distorted. The eyes didn't line up right. The mouth opened too far. I could see gums where they shouldn't be. Then it bit my face, hard. I screamed and twisted my body, trying to get it off. It didn't stop. It kept pressing down, teeth scraping against my cheek, trying to latch again. I grabbed its head and pushed, but it kept coming back. Then Tyler jumped in. He grabbed the thing from behind and pulled with everything he had. It resisted at first, its fingers digging into my shirt, but then it lost grip and fell to the side. I rolled away and tried to stand, but my injured foot slipped on the floor. Blood made it worse. I hit the ground again, and the thing turned fast. It crawled toward me and grabbed my ankle again. Teeth sank in deeper this time. I screamed again and kicked it with my other foot, hitting its head. It loosened its grip for a second. That was enough. Tyler grabbed my arm and pulled me up. I leaned on him, and we moved fast toward the front door. My leg barely held my weight, but I forced it. We didn't look back. We got out of the house and kept moving until we reached the street. We stayed outside for a while. I sat on the curb, holding my leg. Tyler stood next to me, shaking. Neither of us spoke at first. Then I called the police. While we waited, I kept looking at the house. The door was still open. Nothing came out. No movement. No sound. It just stood there like nothing had happened. When the police arrived, they asked questions. I tried to explain, but it sounded insane even to me. They went inside to check. Before they entered, I felt a tight knot in my chest. Not fear exactly. Something else. Like expecting something to come out again. But nothing did. They searched the entire house, every room, every corner. No sign of anything, no dog, no second child, nothing. Just blood on the bathroom floor. We didn't go back to live there. I had stitches on my ankle and face. The marks stayed. They didn't heal clean. The doctors asked questions. I gave simple answers. I didn't mention what really happened. Tyler doesn't talk about it much. When he does, he keeps it short. He says the dog changed in front of him, that it stood up differently, that its body stretched before taking his shape. Buddy was never found. No one reported a loose dog. No shelters had him. It was like he disappeared completely.